Good evening, everybody. Welcome once again to Story Hour. I'm your host, Daniel Marcus. My amazing co-host is Laura Blackwell. And I hope that you're all healthy and safe, taking care of yourselves, taking care of each other, people that matter to you. I started Story Hour right at the beginning of the pandemic, and we were kind of all frightened and all in lockdown, and we really didn't know what was in store. And my intention was really pretty modest. I just wanted to create a space where my writer friends and I could read our work to each other. And I envisioned something kind of intimate and small scale, and it just grew and grew and grew. And 2.5 years later, we are going strong. We've had some wonderful writers every week, week in and week out, sharing fantastic work. So I feel really privileged to continue to be able to share this with all of you. The idea is really simple, and I think of this as kind of the second oldest form of entertainment in human history, which is folks sitting around the fire telling each other lies. And we do exactly that. We have two writers, 30 minutes each. And not a whole lot of frills, not a whole lot of self-promo, just the work. And tonight we're really happy to have Sam Rebelein and José Pablo Iriarte. It's our custom to ask authors to indicate a worthy cause for us to call your attention to. If you're fortunate enough to be in a position to help financially, that's great, please do so. If not, just be aware, share by word of mouth, do whatever you can to support these causes. So Sam is reading tonight for the Last Prisoner Project, lastprisonerproject.org. The Last Prisoner Project was founded in 2019 out of the belief that no one should remain incarcerated for cannabis offenses. They brought together a team of justice-impacted individuals, criminal and social justice advocates, policy and education experts, and leaders in social justice and drug policy reform to work to end this injustice. Lastprisonerproject.org. Jose is reading tonight for genderspectrum.org. Gender Spectrum works to create gender-sensitive and inclusive environments for all children and teens. They have online groups and events and other resources for gender-expansive youth and families, especially during the time of COVID, but presumably beyond COVID as well. It's genderspectrum.org. And I neglected to do a coin toss or whatever between the two of you folks to figure out who gets to start. So anybody want to shout out?
Well, I mean, if you said my name first, I'm happy to go first, unless you have a preference, Jose. I don't care either way.
Sam Rebelein, in memoir and horror from Goddard College, Vermont, right?
Yeah, there's a campus in Washington too, but I went to the Vermont campus, which I loved. But
I also hail from before I got my engineering degrees, I hail from the small, weird New England liberal arts, bizarre, incestuous, drug-addled. I went to Hampshire. So.
Okay, nice.
So Sam's work has appeared in a number of publications, including Bourbon Press, Planet Scum, the upcoming Dark Matter Night Worms anthology, Human Monsters, and Ellen Datlow's prestigious Best Horror of the Year. William Morrow will publish Sam's debut horror novel, Edenville, next fall, which I assume is this fall. Is that right, 2022?
That's still next fall.
Oh, okay, so. Cool. And his debut short story collection, The Poorly Made and Other Things, in 2024. I can't wait, personally. So for more about Sam's work, follow him on Twitter at Hillary Scruff. And Sam first appeared, well, the notes that I have say 1/27/20, but that can't be right. But I know you've been here before.
I think it must have been January of last year, right?
Yeah,
because
probably. Right.
Yeah. Although the last year and a half feel very long to me, so I'm not the person to ask about particular dates in that time.
Regardless, Sam, we're really happy to have you back, and the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you so much. I am really happy to be here, and I'm excited about this particular piece in the anthology it's going to be in. It's coming out, I think, in September, and it's called Strange Weeds. It has a very, it's all weed-related horror stories, and it's got a very cool table of contents. Ramsey Campbell is in it. And so I just feel very lucky to be a part of it. But I don't think I have anything particular to say in the way of trigger warnings. There's some language, there's some spooky ghost stuff. But other than that, I think it's relatively tame. But it's called OG Killer Kush. And it begins like this. Well, yeah, I did think it was just in my head at first, but I recognize now that I'm saying this all out loud that I should have known better. Nobody in these kinds of stories should be allowed to say, oh, maybe it was just my imagination anymore, because it never is, unless you're on Shutter Island or in Hill House or something. But even then, I know that's not what you want me to say, Doc. You want me to say he wasn't there. We imagined it, but it's the truth. It hurts so much to talk right now with all these fucking stitches. Why would I waste pain lying to you? So obviously I'm only like 5 feet tall and 110, but I can smoke everyone I know under the table. Most guys are like, yeah, okay, Abby, let's see. And then they're high as balls and I'm not even buzzed. But I think that no matter who you are, every stoner has at least one moment when they think, oh, fuck, it's finally happened. I've finally gotten too high. I've had that moment. I've been smoking since my junior year of high school, a decade now, and I still have moments when I feel like I've finally overdone it. You know, you're on a train or something and you're just like, I am not going to make it. Or the movie isn't even halfway over and you're just like, fuck. This was one of those moments at first. But it wasn't just the weed. It wasn't in my head. It wasn't anything else but him, the man inside the smoke. He was the one who fucked my mouth. I'm sorry. I'll try not to laugh. I don't know what made me laugh. I almost tore a fucking stitch out there. So yeah, the first time I was in my bathtub, I was smoking a joint, listening to some lo-fi, stewing in this lavender bath bomb. It was mostly dark in the bathroom, minus the 2 white candles I was burning. I'm not super woo-woo, but it was Sunday night and I was trying to rein in a fresh, peaceful week at work. I took a big hit, blew a huge thing of smoke off to the side, and there, standing in the middle of my bathroom, was a man. I mean, I have no reason specifically to call it a man. I couldn't see his features or anything. He was just an outline, a shape. It could have been anybody. But the way he stood, the way he loomed with these broad shoulders and this large skull, this was a cruel masculine energy. This was hunger. This was wrath. This was a shadow thing that had raped, killed, pillaged, and burned. This was a man who'd known blood. He was only there for a second. The smoke bounced off and curled around him, shaping him out of the very air, and when the smoke billowed away from him, he was gone again. I screamed out of the tub as fast as I could, dropping my joint into the foamy water. I pressed my back against the cold tile wall and stood there for a long time, panting and wheezing and air drying cold. I kept my eyes locked on the middle of my little bathroom and nothing moved. When I was shivering and almost dry and still nothing in the bathroom had moved, I swept my legs over the edge of the tub one by one, started feeling around the air. I put a shaking hand through the spot where the man should have been. Nothing. Not even a cold spot or anything. That's when I figured it must have been in my head. The joint I'd been smoking was some new strain my friend M had gotten from her dealer. Maybe it was just stronger than I'd expected. So I wrapped myself up in my one blue towel that always smells like Fritos for some reason, not bothering to do anything with my hair. I was still so shaky and unsteady. I kept forcing myself to laugh, but each laugh came out hoarser and more panicky than the last. I kept forcing myself to think, you're fine, girl. It's all in your head. You're just too high. You know, bullshitting myself. I drained the tub, snatching the soggy joint before it gurgled away into the sewer, hoping I might be able to salvage some of it. I grabbed my phone, turned off the lo-fi, and sat on the edge of my bed, hair dripping onto the carpet. I FaceTimed Em, but she texted me to say she was in a meeting. She's a lawyer. She has these weird hours. It sounds like a bullshit profession to me, all that working on weekends shit, but I'm a social media manager for a soap company, so what do I know? At least I get those lavender bath bombs half off. So I stayed hunched over my phone for maybe half an hour, darting glances at the bathroom door, scrolling through Instagram to try and steady myself. But that was a mistake because Sarah had just posted something a few minutes before. We haven't spoken in years, but she still gets under my skin. I know I shouldn't compare myself to her, to anyone. I know it isn't healthy. I shouldn't even be following her, but I can't help it. I hate that she's doing all this fancy pants bullshit for New York stage and film. And I'm sitting here with the exact same marketing degree from the exact same college, high off my ass in a towel that smells like corn, seeing ghosts in my bathroom. In her latest post, Sarah's at some gala in Manhattan, schmoozing with famous people. There's a few pictures, actually. Sarah in a very nice bathroom with this sleek black dress draped over her curves. She looks like a stroke of silky calligraphy. I don't even know how to get my body to bend in that mirror selfie way, with your arms pressed down, your shoulders angled to one side, and your hips cocked the other way. In the next picture, she's beaming into the camera flash with her stupid friend Melanie, teeth all perfect and never braces. Then it's a picture of Lin-Manuel Miranda giving a speech on stage. And then Sarah's smiling with Matthew Lillard, his arm around her like he knows her personally. I hate her. Just as I was about to start doom scrolling through Sarah's entire account again, Em FaceTimed me back. Oh, wow, I said. Thank God. Dude, I am freaking the fuck out. I explained what was happening, choking up a little when I described the man. I was so spooked. The way he had no features but glared down at me with cold eyes that I could feel there for a moment, then vanished with the smoke. Luckily, well, maybe not luckily, but it made me feel better. Em said she had something similar happen to her when she was taking a bath with her bong. Well, I had that Dr. Teal's bubble bath stuff, she said. And I looked down and it was like this one clump of bubbles was like blinking at me. Like they weren't bubbles at all. And suddenly it was like they were all actually eyes attached to this head. And there were these like crab legs swimming around underneath. Nope, I said, no, thank you. She laughed, right? So that's crazy. You saw a whole dude? Well, wait, I said, what happened to the bubble thing? Oh, lol, I drained the tub and it was gone. I just watched some cartoons in bed until I came down. I figured I was just too high. Literally nothing like that has ever happened to me again. Geez, I said, that's crazy that we've both had like hallucinations while we've been in the tub. I leaned really hard on the word hallucinations, hoping that she wouldn't correct me, that she'd say, yeah, it was totally just a weed-induced whatever. But then she did correct me, and fear began to wrap these tight, barbed wire fingers around my brain. Oh no, I don't think it was a hallucination, said Em. What do you mean? I asked. I mean, I figured I was too high, but I don't think I made it up. I wait, what? You were too high, but it wasn't a hallucination. No, I just think I got high out of my brain, and because I wasn't like fully grounded, it opened my mind to see shit that I wouldn't have seen otherwise. I blinked at her through the screen. What? She laughed again. Look, I know you're not the most woo-woo, but what if, don't say it, you don't know what I'm going to say. I know, but I really hate the idea of a bubble-eyed crab thing in my tub, so if it's anything like that, I mean, I flushed at Mabs, it was fine. That's not the point, I said, a whine edging into my voice. Abby, said Em, you really haven't considered the possibility that your apartment is haunted? I glanced up at the bathroom door. It stood wide open. Dark in there, the candles blown out, the shadows full and thick. Even just hearing the word haunted pass through my phone's little speakers seemed to radically shift the air in my home. I felt something move closer to me. The air got tighter. I said, you are literally legally obligated to come over now and keep me company. All right, awesome. But question, should I bring Bon Jovi? Oh, absolutely. Which is ironic because if I had said no, I might not even be here right now. I'm sorry I made myself laugh again. I shouldn't keep doing that. Why am I laughing? I'm going to tear out all these stitches. We're not going to make a damn Ouija board, I shouted over the hair dryer. I was trying to get my poor little waterlogged joint back into fighting shape. Absolutely not. It is truly the easiest thing, Em shouted back from the couch. She was packing a bowl for us in her Bon, which we'd lovingly named John Bon Jovi back in junior year, back when we were roommates in that horrible third floor suite in Cleve Hall, the dorm with the most miserable radiators clanging loudly at 3 a.m. well into the warmer months. Sarah had been our third roomie, but she never smoked with us. She said it dried out her lungs. She kept this tin of water on the radiator in her room, and every time I had to go in there for whatever reason, I thought I was going to die. It was so muggy. I can't even remember why Sarah was friends with us sophomore year, because by junior year, we didn't get along at all. When Em and I told her we were getting an apartment off campus together for our final year, Sarah said fine. She already had plans with Melanie from her a cappella group. We were like, cool, peace. But she continues to haunt me. I hate that that's the word that came to mind as I shut the hairdryer off and poked at the joint. Sarah haunts me. She's so sleek and alive, and I'm coming up on my third anniversary at the Morton Kill Soap Factory. She makes me feel dead, like I'm haunting my own life. I think he'll live, I said, placing the joint back in its ashtray. I plopped down onto the couch next to Em. So it's just a sheet of paper, she said, and a shot glass. She handed me Bon Jovi. We write the letters and shit on the paper, and then we each put 2 fingers on the glass. Dude, I don't want to fuck with that shit. That's how people in movies die. Well, what if it fucked with you first? She pointed out. I sucked in a hit, shook my head, and held it as I said, the knife old man. I ain't fighting no ghosts. Em frowned. So, what's your plan? You don't have a plan? Plan. You see, Em is a doer. When we lived together in Cleve, we'd stay up until 2 a.m. getting high and watching shitty horror movies. And then she'd go, well, I have math homework to do. So I'd go to bed and she'd stay up doing. I never understood that, being a doer, because what was I going to do in this situation? Nothing. I was going to breathe out a big jet of smoke, just like I did in the bathroom, and nothing was going to show up. No man, no ghoul, no nothing. I've seen too many horror movies to be dumb enough to be that character who says ghosts don't exist, especially not in my own story. But like I said, I thought it was in my head. So I exhaled a massive cloud of indica into my living room, breathing out the word nothing, giving it weight like that one SpongeBob episode when Squidward is alone, alone, alone. Except that one smoky word flew up from my mouth into the center of the living room and wrapped itself around the man. He seemed larger this time, more in focus. When the smoke blew across his face, he was glaring at me with bloodshot eyes, but the spiderwebs of veins in them were white, ectoplasmic, and insane. This man had executed people. He'd snapped old lady bones for fun. He'd cut brakes, torn holes in parachutes, left women fetal in beds and basements. This man had slammed kittens against walls. How do I know? Because it was in his eyes. Because he wanted me to know. We screamed, guttural, primal sounds I didn't even know we could make. Em and I scrambled backwards over the couch at the same time. Bon Jovi flew from my hand and cracked in two on the edge of the coffee table. We peeked over the top of the couch, watching as the shoulders of the man lingered in the flat lines of haze lilting through the room. We watched as his eyes burned in the air, then faded with the smoke. Because I'd gone right from a big hit into a scream, I started coughing bad. Em kept clapping me on the back, saying, it's okay, he's gone, you're okay. I could feel her hand shaking through the back of my shirt, as she wasn't just talking to me when she said, you're okay now, he's gone. Except, of course, he wasn't. He's never gone. I think he's something primal, one of the oldest energies on the planet. He's always been around, a constant cruelty vibrating in the air, breaking and bleeding and laughing all the way across all time. He's been alive since before we discovered fire and smoke in the first place. I'm sorry, do you have a tissue? Thanks. I shouldn't grin like that, not when it makes my mouth stitches bleed. But for some reason, thinking about him just makes me want to laugh. Em and I had a sleepover in my bed, neither one of us leaving the other side. We went to the bathroom together, got water from the kitchen together. We stayed up watching random shit on YouTube until we drifted off for a bit, and then all of a sudden the birds were singing. I spent all day at work doom scrolling through Sarah's Insta, zooming in on pictures I'd already seen 1,000 times, pouring mug after mug of cold brew into a bottomless headache until I could barely breathe. I was so jittery. At least it made me feel a little more alive, like if I was still in a body that could OD on caffeine, I was still okay somehow. After work, Em went to talk to her dealer to see if she could find out anything about the strains we'd been smoking. I'd given her enough cash to cover my half of a good ass haul so we could experiment with different strains, see if it made a difference. I went to talk to my landlady, Whitney, to see if the apartment had any, history. What unit are you again? Whitney asked in her trademark, gravelly New Jersey voice. 4B, I said. Huh. She took a drag off her cigarette, blew a jet of menthol smoke out the side of her mouth. I flinched, eyeing the smoke. No faces, no men. You're the apartment that smells like skunk, said Whitney. Yeah, I know. I'm really sorry. If it smells that bad, I can. Oh, honey, I don't give a shit. She blew smoke out her nostrils. I flinched again. Well, 4B. There was the young woman in there before you, then that nice actor guy with the dog. I don't know. I can't think of any reason it'd be haunted. Ain't nobody's died here, as far as I know. But good for you asking straight out instead of worrying it'd make you sound crazy. So you believe in ghosts? I asked. Honey, she ground out her cigarette with the heel of her Birkenstock. As far as I'm concerned, anything that can exist does. That answer your question? It didn't. Not really, but it did narrow things down. If my apartment wasn't haunted, then the man had to be tied to the weed he kept showing up in, or he was tied to me. Em dumped the goods onto the coffee table and clapped her hands. So, we've got like 8 different strains here. He said that one that was in your pre-roll was some shit called strawberry bleed. Gross. I sat on the very edge of my couch, cracking my knuckles as I surveyed the hill of weed Em had just bought. Nugs, gummies, carts, pre-rolls, resin, wax, a pair of blunts, and the half-broken Bon Jovi, his neck cracked halfway up, his mouth now a jagged, spiky ring. The jags sparkled in the soft light from the lamp next to the couch. But, Em said, the stuff we were smoking was this other one, Rip Van Winkle. She picked up a little bag with an 8th in it. I asked him if he had heard any weird stories about people smoking either of those, the Rip or the strawberry, and he said no. He said he got all of this from his usual guy, nothing new, nothing super sketch, should all be regular. We'd blown like $300 each for this experiment. For Em, that was a drop in the bucket, which is how most things seemed for her since she started her gig as an associate at, Whitehead, Pussman, and Dandrake, or whatever the hell it is. But for me, that's half a week's salary. I just really didn't want to be haunted. So where do you want to start? Em asked. I picked up a plastic pre-roll tube, read the label. Pineapple diesel sound good to you? Sure, she said, let's do it. Okay, but we have to remain calm if we see him. Right, because if he wanted to hurt us, he would have already. Exactly, I said. Well, then cheers, Abs. Let's see us a ghost. I lit up, sucked in a huge hit, glanced at Em. She cocked her head like, here goes nothing, and I exhaled. The smoke hit the center of his chest. It rolled off in all directions, curling in tentacles around his back. He stood about a foot away from the couch, glaring down at us with bright, atomic eyes. Fuck, Em whispered. Let's do it again. I chucked a joint at her. Go for it. She lit up, exhaled, and her smoke broke against his abdomen. He was solid muscle. His gut was flat, his shoulders broad. I saw him marching between rows of burning huts, hatchet in one hand, band of dripping scalps in the other. Jesus, Abs. Em gave me a spooked look. You feel him? I asked. She nodded. He feels mean. I know. Here, let's do it at the same time. We'll cross the streams and shit. We took another hit together, and together we exhaled. Our smoke hit him at the same time, curling up around his bald head and down around his hands. His fingers twitched. All right, Em licked her lips. So the more smoke we blow at him, the more we can see him? Seems like. So we should just get really high. We gave each other a shiny-eyed nod, and we took another hit. The room filled gradually with haze, but the man got clearer and clearer. We could see the broken slant of his nose, the scars along his bare shoulders, down his arms. He wanted me to know these weren't battle scars. These were claw marks from people he'd held underwater, the long, deep struggle trenches of nails raking along his skin as he squeezed the life from someone's throat, as he dug his thumbs into their eyes and sucked off the putty on his tongue. He wanted me to know he was not redeemable. But we just got higher and higher. I mean, nothing else to do on a Monday night, and pretty soon we started chatting, just talking about nothing as this man glared down at us. I'm just saying, I said, grinding out the butt of my third joint in the ashtray. Sarah doesn't smoke. I'm the one who's supposed to be taking medicine, but she's technically more successful than I am. How does that even? I'm medicined. She's not. All these people with their fucking LinkedIn profiles, do they look healthier than me? Are they better than me? And well, what even is success? Dude, said M, exhaling directly into the man's face. He didn't blink. I know exactly what you mean, Abs. And no, you don't, I snapped. You're successful. I'm just rotting. M frowned at the joint in her hand. She didn't know what to say to that one. And I started feeling really frustrated. Why wouldn't he leave me alone? What was so special about me? I didn't think I was special at all. I picked up Bon Jovi. Do you want to try this? You're going to cut yourself, Abs. I shrugged, picking an eighth of Furious Diesel Double X, whatever that is, from our hill. Well, so, I said, as long as we're living dangerously here, nodding up at the man. I mean, I wouldn't push my luck, said M, but you go for it. And something about her saying that, something about that just made anger twitch through my chest. It had this tinge in it that made me feel like M thought I was being stupid, like she was better than me. And truth be told, I've been feeling that way more and more. I was surprised I'd even gotten her to hang out with me 2 nights in a row instead of her fucking law school friends. I was sort of bitter, actually. I was bitter. Even my best friend had a life that didn't involve me. I packed the bowl in silence, stewing, and suddenly I was just so fed up with everything. I wanted a jolt, wanted to remind myself I was still here. So when Bon Jovi was ready to go, I slammed my mouth down onto his, stabbing my lips, slicing through my gums, cracking glass between my teeth. I burbled up a hit, shredding my mouth into stringy scraps as I lifted my head, and I screamed at M, myself, Sarah, him, all of it. Stop haunting me. Smoke billowed from my broken mouth in huge gouts of bleeding steam, and with that final hit, he grew skin. Smoke wrapped around his body, solidifying, turning fleshy. It swirled across his face, his eyes, his shoulders, his hands, and for a split second, he was whole, he was alive. Then he reached down and grabbed me by the throat. And that's everything I know. I'm sorry. I know you want more, Doc, but there isn't any. Yeah, I know that M says that what happened next is, well, I know she says the man burst, that after he solidified, he exploded into smoke again, and then this man-shaped cloud sharpened and tunneled into me. I know she says he cut down into my throat, into my nose, like I was swallowing him, like he was shoving his way down. I know she says that, but I don't remember it. I remember yelling, and I remember the pain. I remember waking up here in the hospital, unable to eat. I remember meeting you, but I can't say I remember the man entering me or anything like that. I don't remember him being inside of me. And who knows? M has seen crazy shit before. That crab thing in the tub. I'm just saying. Or maybe she's a straight up liar. Of course you can trust me. Really, I'm not crazy. I didn't mean to do what I did to that nurse. I'm not laughing again. I swear I really didn't mean it. How was I supposed to know toes were that easy to break? And by the way, when do you think I can have my phone back? I want to send Sarah a message. It's been too long since we talked, and this whole thing has got me thinking. I think we should be friends again. I want to be Sarah's friend. I want to know where she lives these days so I can stop by, give her a kiss, and remind her I'm still alive. And that's OG Killer Kush. Thank you.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Wow. It is our custom to just pause a moment and chill between authors. And probably not enough time to burn one down if you wanted to do that, but just let's have a moment to just sort of let this story resonate, and then we'll move on to Jose. Oh, man. All right, here we go. José Pablo Iriarte is a Cuban-American writer and teacher who lives in Central Florida. Their short fiction has been selected for inclusion in numerous years' best anthologies, including Best American Science Fiction and Fantasy 2022 and Transcendent for the year's Best Transgender Speculative Fiction. Their novelette, The Substance of My Lives, The Accidents of Our Births, was a Nebula finalist for 2018 and long-listed for the Otherwise, formerly the Tiptree Award, while their short story Proof by Induction was a finalist for the Nebula and Locus Awards and is currently a finalist for the Hugo and Sturgeon Awards. Best of luck, man. That's awesome. Their debut novel is slated for publication in spring 2024 from Knopf Books for young readers, an imprint of Penguin, Random House. Jose serves on the board of directors of the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers of America, and their longer work is represented by the Donald Mass Literary Agency. Learn more at www.labyrinthrat.com or follow Jose on Twitter at labyrinthrat. Jose, take it away.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be back and just really pleased for this opportunity. The story that I'm going to share with you is called This Wine Dark Feeling That Isn't the Blues. And it's one of, well, I am known for, I think, kind of sweet stories that kind of pack an emotional wallop. This story is not so sweet. This is a little bit edgier than some of the other stuff I write, which probably isn't edgy by anybody else's standards, but by mine. It has a lot of swear words in it, and content note, there is discussion of past suicide and suicidal ideation. And this story originally appeared, I want to say, in 2019 in Escape Pod. And I mentioned it's one of my favorites of my stories. I felt like this one never got the attention that I wish it had. So it's a nice one to trot out at a reading. Can you all hear me okay? Okay, I've been worried. All right, so once again, This Wine Dark Feeling That Isn't the Blues. The Odyssey contains over 300 mentions of color. Black, white, red. Not a single blue, though. Even the ocean is not described as blue, but as wine dark. Likewise, with the Quran and ancient Hebrew scripture, no blues anywhere. This is what I focus on during Savannah's funeral. Otherwise, if I don't keep my mind busy, I will think instead about how she didn't keep her promise to me and how I'm free of my promise to her. If you can't trust promises made by two girls in a psych ward, what can you trust? I read somewhere that Elon Musk thinks that we are living in a simulation. Neil deGrasse Tyson, too. It would explain impossible shit like Donald Trump getting elected president. Just a bug in the code somewhere. One time in The Sims, I had a horse get stuck halfway between one of my houses. It just walked into the foundation like it wasn't there. A horse gets stuck underground. A pussy-grabbing reality TV star that nobody likes becomes president. Same. I don't believe in God because if God exists, then he's an asshole. A simulation, on the other hand, not a creator who is omnibenevolent and omniscient, but just another nerd, as flawed as me, but more powerful. I can believe that. Maybe that's why the color blue exists now, but it didn't in ancient Greece. Maybe it's a patch. I trace the scars on my wrist as they lower Savannah into the ground. My life could use a patch. I spent 2 weeks at Cerulean Lake Behavioral Center after I sliced myself open. For the first 4 days, I spoke to nobody. Then Savannah sat beside me at art therapy and peered right at me. My skin tingled. She'd fascinated me since I was admitted. Short cropped black hair, too white skin, and a little half sneer that said none of this bullshit fooled her. Everything she did, every word she said seemed to be a dare. I couldn't keep from watching her, but I averted my gaze each time she looked my way. I thought she hadn't noticed. Guess I was wrong. I swallowed and picked up a pastel stick, as though the blank construction paper in front of me had suddenly become the most interesting thing in the world. I've seen you, she said. I'm Savannah. Abigail. I'm Abigail. She nodded. I know. I focused on my paper and drew a random curve. Beneath the table, Savannah placed a hand on my leg. The pastel in my hand snapped in half. Slowly, she ran her hand up my thigh. I stopped breathing. She stared at the side of my face, daring me to object. I should probably say something, I thought. I should move away or call the therapist. Except I didn't want to. How do you get the attention of the undivine nerd? Clearly not by speculating on whether our reality is a simulation, because plenty of people are already doing that. You need to understand why they're running it. It could be for the same reason I play The Sims. Well, except mostly I just like to wall people up in rooms and see how they react to not having a way. Oh, fuck. Mental promise. Never do that again. We also run simulations for scientific purposes to run experiments with less overhead than it would take to carry them out in the real world. Well, in our world. I don't know if this is the reason for our simulation, but since I don't have any other ideas, I concentrate on it. Maybe I can get the undivine nerd's attention by endangering the results. An objection to the simulated reality hypothesis is that it would require an infinite amount of computing power. The simulation would need to account for everything we can interact with, the position of every atom, every person, every planet, every galaxy. People who make this objection have never played an MMORPG. In-game objects are often not loaded until they are actually being interacted with. An object does not exist until somebody's looking at it. This is my tool then. I post on the SR forums, on skeptic sites, on Reddit, proposing Project Overhead. Observe everything, I beg. Point telescopes at the sky, record what you see. More, increase your own overhead, because whatever processing occurs on our systems is actually occurring on the system that we run on. Load folding at home on all your computers. Leave your radio on. Multitask. Other people chime in with their own ideas. Even a scientist at JPL starts filling lab downtime with experiments and simulations. I leave my Sims on full time with free will cranked up and lifetimes maxed out. It's simulations all the way down. A cosmic DDoS attack. I kissed Savannah on the lips. I was leaving, so I didn't care who saw. Savannah, of course, never gave a shit. Before this week, I'd never kissed a girl. I bit down on the words, I love you, before they could tumble from my lips. Could you fall in love in a week and a half? Was love even real? I didn't want to say the words only to have Savannah laugh or roll her eyes. I wish I'd met you sooner, I said instead. Me too. A tight grin seemed to force itself on her face, like she was embarrassed by her own sentimentality. Take care of yourself, Abby. I took her hand. She didn't yank it away, but she eyed me suspiciously. Promise you'll stay alive, I said. I want to see you again on the outside. She shook her head. Can't promise that. Then promise that you won't off yourself without talking to me first. I won't stop you. I just want to know. She pulled out of my grip and cupped my face. I promise, if you do. Dr. Jackson leans forward. How have you been coping with Savannah's suicide? Have your own ideations become more frequent? Been keeping busy. My phone is out and I'm swiping absently through stumble upon pages. The room quivers like watching TV through a brownout. Through the office window, a bird appears to slow down mid-flight. What do you want? It's Dr. Jackson's voice, but it's not Dr. Jackson. My chest tingles. Shit, I was right. Somehow in my mental playthroughs, I never much thought about the point after I got the undivine nerd's attention. I swallow. I didn't go through all this to stammer my way through this moment. I want Savannah back. Outside, the bird has come to a complete stop, suspended in a cloudless blue sky. The game is paused. The response to my statement is so long in coming that I start to wonder if I have been frozen too. You are in no position to make demands. You are a malfunctioning subroutine. The easiest solution would be to replace you. I meet not Dr. Jackson's eyes. They remind me of those fancy vodka bottles where the illustration is etched on the inside and you see them by looking through the bottle. Are you really trying to threaten the suicidal girl? They incline their head, conceding the point. Regardless, you don't have anything to negotiate with. I'm not negotiating, I say. I'm begging. Please, don't you have feelings in your world? Don't you hurt? What I feel isn't simulated. That part is real. Savannah wanted to be dead. Are you proposing to change her into somebody who wants to remain alive, or to force her to live against her will? I cross my arms. Not Dr. Jackson raises an eyebrow. Would you tell her she's in a simulation, or would you hide knowledge from her? Wouldn't she be even more determined to end it if she knew? I lean toward him. I want our lives to intersect before the point where she wanted to die. That's what I do when one of my Sims dies and I don't want it to. I want to return to a restore point. What makes you think that would fix anything? How do you know the two of you wouldn't simply descend into self-destruction together? I don't, I say, my voice quivering. I don't know my restored Sims won't just die again either. What I do know is that at least we would have a shot. I add, that's more than we have right now. Savannah lies on a blanket by the lake. They've left my memories. What does that mean? I suppose it means my knowledge is not inconsistent with their aims. Maybe our awareness is the point. Maybe the issue being studied is how people figure out the nature of reality. I think about how the undivine nerd spoke to me, but not, as far as I know, to anybody else participating in Project Overhead, not to anybody else poking at the edges of this simulation. Does that make Savannah and me special? Or does that just mean we caught their attention at one moment, an attention that may have since wandered on, like mine does when I get tired of a game and stop playing it? I plop down on the sand next to her and she takes my hand. It's a beautiful sunset, she says. It is, I agree, giving her a squeeze. I turn toward the wine-dark water, watching the sky turn red. My neck tingles as Savannah runs her fingers along my smooth wrist, but I wouldn't stop her for anything in the world. Will this last? Is what we have even real? Who can say? But if this isn't love, then it's a damn fine simulation. Thank you. And if we have time, I do have a follow-up story if you'd like a palate cleanser.
We do.
Awesome. All right. So this is much more the kind of story that I'm known for. This is a story that came out this year in Daily Science Fiction. It's called A Song for Looking Back, A Song for Looking Forward. And interestingly enough, we've got some points of, serendipity between Sam's work and my stories. First of all, both of us having a protagonist named Abby. And in this story, I had the idea of what if a musical instrument were haunted? And that's kind of what was the genesis of this second story. So Luis hid from the piano for nearly 3 weeks after Abuela's funeral. Both stories begin with funerals. What is that? Wow, I didn't even think of that. Sorry, I'll get back in character. It was easy enough at first. It was in her bedroom, and nobody had any reason to go in there, least of all him. Without her reminders, neither Mommy nor Papi would notice if he didn't practice. But as the days passed, he did sense her voice calling him, telling him to practice his scales, his twinkle twinkle, his la cucaracha. Before long, he found himself on the pitted wooden bench in her room, plunking out the notes in his practice book. Despite the time away, her lessons came back to him quickly. In fact, as his hands traversed the keys, he forgot she was gone. In his ear, she whispered her gentle admonishments. Again, no, that one's a G. Better. He practically knocked the bench over when Mommy came up behind him and tousled his hair. I'm glad you're practicing, mi vida. Your abuela would be so happy. For a moment, until Mommy spoke, he had thought abuela herself had caressed him. He did not return the next day or the day after. It took several days, but eventually the pressure to play came back. It took fewer days next time and fewer the time after, until he was practicing every day, until it no longer seemed like practice at all, but just something he did. He didn't play to make abuela happy, or Mommy, or Papi, who couldn't care less. He played because when he did, he was with her again. Between exercises, he would tell her about his day, about the things that worried him, and she would listen and take him seriously. Luis carried a box of clothes to the living room and added his contribution to a stack that already teetered at waist high. Who's got the Sharpie? Dad pointed to the coffee table without glancing away from his laptop. As he reached across the table, Luis caught a glimpse of the screen, a photo of Abuela's piano, the headline, $600 OBO, the cursor hovering over the word submit. What are you doing? We can't take that thing to the new house, Luis. We'll buy you a nice electric keyboard. He dropped the marker. No! He looked from his father to his mother and back and tried to will the words to come out, tried to explain to them that Abuela was still there, He couldn't. They wouldn't understand, wouldn't believe. All he could get out was, "Mommy, please." "Niño bidongo," Dad muttered. Luis's cheeks burned, but he held his ground. Mom glared. "You know how much he loves that piano, Juan, and it did belong to my mother." Dad sighed and closed the browser. "I suppose a piano in the living room's classy, even that old thing. It'll be hell to move, though." "Come on, sweetie, you play for us all the time. Why not play a song for my friend Eileen?" Luis rolled his eyes. "Mom," she turned toward her guest. "Ever since he became a teenager, he acts like every little thing is torture." "Fine," he said, dropping onto the bench. To keep from saying or doing something he would regret, he launched into his latest, Mills's Music Box Dancer. Abuela didn't say anything to him while he played for them, but he sensed her gaze, her approval. "He's terrific," Mom's friend said. "Where do you take him for lessons?" "Nowhere. He's completely self-taught." Luis didn't correct her, but his face heated up. Keeping quiet was lying by omission. "It runs in the family," she added. "My mother was a music teacher in her day." "He has potential. He ought to look into a music school or a conservatory." Mom beamed. "You think?" "Maybe he will." Luis bit his lip. He would do no such thing. Music school brochures started appearing on the piano's lid after that. Places in Chicago, California, even Manhattan. He didn't want to try to explain that it wasn't him they were all amazed by. It was her. He couldn't tell them he still felt her hands, still heard her guiding him. He hadn't set out to fool people into thinking he had talent. He just wanted to play. Whatever. He still had over 3 years of high school. They would find something else to obsess over. "You enjoy your birthday dinner?" He staggered from the car. "I'm stuffed, Dad. I won't eat for a week." "You have one more present," Mom said. "It's waiting inside." Dad unlocked the door, and Luis followed them in. So much for getting a car for his 16th birthday. Not if his gift was waiting inside. Mom flicked the light switch, and his mouth went dry. "What?" In the middle of the living room, a shiny black baby grand gleamed under the track lights. His stomach cramped. "We got you a real piano," Dad said, beaming. "No more playing on that shabby old thing." Luis blinked several times. "No." He shook his head. "Abuela, no, please. There had to be a mistake." Mom kissed him. "You've worked so hard, showed so much commitment. You've earned it." He inhaled deeply, fighting back nausea. "That's great." He stared at the piano, pain in his chest. Could they still get the old one back? Maybe if he explained. What? What would he possibly say? Dad cocked his head. "Something wrong?" "No, I'm just speechless, I guess." Having a meltdown would solve nothing. This was clearly a done deal. "Go on," said Mom. "Play." He sat on the shiny leather stool and stared at the instrument. It would be awful. She wouldn't be there, and he'd forget everything without her guidance. How would he explain himself then? He picked out the opening notes of his new obsession, Joplin's The Entertainer. The notes were shaky, even at first, where the rag was all melody. Barely a minute in, he went off the rails altogether. He couldn't do this, not without Abuela. He sat still, waiting for his parents to say something, waiting for Mom to ask why he couldn't play anymore, or for Dad to bemoan the money they'd wasted getting him this gift he had never wanted. Nobody said anything, though, and the seconds dragged on. He put his fingers back on the keys. Surely, Abuela didn't start teaching him so that he would only be able to make music on one piano. He would have to imagine her, then. He tried a different piece. The first movement of the Moonlight Sonata seemed more fitting. He positioned his fingers and began to play. It wasn't terrible, not bad at all, good even. He couldn't hear Abuela, couldn't see or feel her, but he told himself she heard him. Who knew what the rules were anyway, and who could say she did not? He played for her then, not for her to teach him or correct him, but just for her to listen and know he thought of her. When he finished, his parents kissed him and retreated to their bedroom. Luis took an old photo from the mantle, him and his grandmother at Disney World when he was 6, and placed it on the piano. Thanks for teaching me, Abuela. He took one of the music school brochures and thumbed through it. Still holding the glossy paper, he padded off toward his room, humming a tune as he went. There you have it. Thank you all so much. If you like those stories, consider checking out my story Proof by Induction. And if you happen to be a Hugo voter and you like it, you might put it on your list.
All right. Thank you, Joe. And thank you, Sam. Really great readings tonight. I'd like to thank both the authors, Sam Rebelein, José Pablo Iriarte, for really bringing it. And once again, feel so privileged to be able to do this every week. I want to thank my co-host, Laura Blackwell, without whom this just wouldn't have been possible to do on a sustaining basis. And all of you out there, thanks once again for coming back and joining us for another week of Story Hour. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other. We will see you next week when we have Meg Yillison and B. Morris Allen. So hopefully we'll see you next time, and be well. Thanks. Good night, everybody.
So long.
Yeah, thank you so much.